Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy has announced his bid for Speaker of the House, even though we still don't know which party will control the House. McCarthy has expressed confidence that the Republicans have the votes for the majority and that he's got the support for the speakership. ABC News' Jay O'Brien is joining us now from Capitol Hill with more on that. Hi, Jay. If Republicans do, in fact, win the majority in the House, what challenges does McCarthy face in this run for Speaker?
Well, Diane, that's exactly right. He says he's confident that he has the support of his party if the GOP does retake the House to become the Speaker. It's a job McCarthy has long coveted, but he still has to lobby for that role. There are further right members of the GOP conference here in the House. The House Freedom Caucus is a good example, who have publicly expressed, some of them, that they are not behind McCarthy's bid for the speakership. We know that McCarthy is reaching out to some of them. He spoke with Marjorie Taylor Greene yesterday, so he has his work cut out for him to try to make sure the further right members of his party are behind his bid to become Speaker.
Now, what is McCarthy's relationship with President Biden like? Can these two work together on bipartisan legislation?
Well, their relationship up to this point is virtually non-existent. You heard the president allude to that yesterday when he was asked what he thought about McCarthy. He said, I think he's the House GOP leader. He didn't have much to say beyond that. We do know that McCarthy and Biden spoke yesterday. There is conversations. The president certainly indicated yesterday he would be open to bipartisan legislation, but a lot of that would run up against several walls, including the idea that there are several members of the House GOP conference, a large number of them actually, who are chomping at the bit if they take the majority to begin investigations into President Biden, into the administration, into the Afghanistan withdrawal, into Hunter Biden. So those investigations would complicate any relationship that Biden would have going forward with McCarthy.
Now, even if they do win control of the House, Republicans will hold a slim majority. What would that mean for getting legislation through the House?
Well, a few things. Firstly, the Freedom Caucus that I mentioned earlier, the further right members of the party, the slimmer the majority Kevin McCarthy and House GOP leadership have, the more those members of the party have an outsized role, the more they have to be courted in votes, the more that McCarthy has to wrangle the various members of the party, the far right, the moderates, etc. But also, any legislation that would be coming out of a GOP-controlled House, if that does become reality, would largely be performative because it would come up against that 60 vote threshold in the Senate. No matter who controls the Senate, there's that 60 vote threshold there. Plus, it will come up against a Biden veto. So we know that Republicans have said there are several pieces of legislation they want to enact on day one. One is the border. The other is rolling back parts of the Inflation Reduction Act. But even if it passes the House in that slim majority that McCarthy has to wrangle, it still comes against all those obstacles.
Jay, what does this potentially mean for bipartisanship? Could we see people start working across the aisle more and more compromise in Washington?
The look ahead is really on these investigations, right? So the House GOP will roll out the Afghanistan withdrawal investigation, investigations into the DOJ, investigations into Hunter Biden, everything that I mentioned. And the notion, and you heard the president say to that yesterday, is that Democrats have long said Americans don't want to see this steady stream of investigations that are politically motivated, et cetera. So when that happens, when there is that GOP oversight, what you might see is the more partisan rancor in D.C., here in the House specifically, because there is this disagreement on how politicized these investigations may become. So a lot of it hinges on what the House GOP, if they take the majority, chooses to do first. Do they choose to go to the floor with legislation? Do they look at the debt ceiling potentially? Or do they go right into those investigations?
All right, Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill, thank you. And George Stephanopoulos will sit down with Speaker Nancy Pelosi for her reaction to the midterm elections and potentially losing her position as Speaker of the House. That's Sunday on This Week on ABC.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.